Market to Market is everywhere you are. Subscribe to Market on YouTube, find us on the PBS video app to stream on demand, and add our 3 podcasts on your favorite podcasting app.
This is the Friday, October 28, 2022 version of the Market Analysis segment from Market to Market. Welcome to the Friday, October 28, 2022 Market Plus. Ted Seifried, still our guest. Ted, we flew through a number of things. I didn't get a chance to ask many follow-ups. I do listen. I want you to know. I listen to what you say. 2 things. I know we're going to get to corn. We're going to do a whole bunch of corn stuff. Okay. You said something about wheat. Is wheat the canary in the coal mine? Right. What do you mean by that?
Well, okay.
I mean, I know what canary in the coal mine means. Let me just say that.
Yes, sure. Right. But, you know, I hesitate to make 2008 comparisons because this isn't 2008. But when it comes to talking about a recession and when it comes to talking about inflation turning into deflation, things like that, the closest thing that we have to look at is, you know, what happened in 2008. And when you had a lot of commodities hitting their highs, a lot of it was happening in June and July. Wheat did it first, right? So, you know, it's just kind of interesting that, you know, wheat is responding poorly to what should be some friendly news. And that's why I'm wondering, you know, is it a canary in a coal mine? Is the wheat suggesting that, you know, there is downward potential in a fair amount of commodities, even though maybe the fundamentals aren't necessarily getting more bearish, or at least not that we see? Because that's the thing, Paul. I'm gonna argue that there's a fair amount of the pricing, there's a component that is coming from things outside of individual grain fundamentals. If you look at a balance sheet, for example, it justifies higher prices, not higher than we're at, but it justifies higher prices than what we would normally have because the balance sheets are tighter than what we normally have. But does it justify the prices that we're at today? And I'm going to argue that no. I think corn, you know, especially old crop corn, went higher than maybe it should have for the balance sheet that it had. Mm-hmm. And a big portion of that was the inflationary premium that was put into markets. And if you take that away, well, then you can have balance sheets that are very similar to what we have right now, and yet lower prices. And that could happen at some point. And maybe the wheat is suggesting that we're headed to something like that. I would also say that after multiple years of historically high prices or high prices on the historical high end of the range, we are going to see demand destruction at some point. The question is, are we seeing that now or not? If you look at corn exports, you got to get at least a little bit worried that we are seeing that very much so. But there's an asterisk there because we don't know what kind of crop South America is going to have for their export, corn exports. I think the reason we're reluctant to really break corn right now is because we don't know enough about South American weather yet. If we get a little bit further on down the line and South America looks good, then you get real worried about corn.
Real worried here, and we should be doing something about it. So let's jump into corn. And we'll just start with this, because I'm guessing what you just said doesn't mean you're going to answer this question real positively. Matt in Amherst, Wisconsin. Matt asked the question we all want to know. Is there any news worthy of the corn hat at the moment? What you just said, Ted, doesn't make it sound like the corn hat's making an appearance anytime soon.
Yeah, okay. So here's the thing. I'll wear the corn hat for sort of a variety of reasons. I will do it if I feel like corn has done something really good and it's a celebratory corn hat. That's fine. If I'm trying to pick up corn out of the doldrums and look for something positive or feel bad for corn, I'll put the corn hat on. But in a time like this where we've been absolutely sideways for over 2 months and this week was just, terrible ranges and closing a lot of days close to unchanged, I don't see anything really worthy of the corn hat. Now, that being said, I want to let everybody know that I did just get a new corn hat.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it finally came. The logistical shipping issues from supply chain issues, it finally made it over on a boat apparently. But the University of Nebraska bookstore finally was restocked, and I was able to get my hands on a new corn hat. So there will be a new corn hat that will be making its way out at some point.
Maybe on your next appearance we'll bring that one out. Okay, well, we have another corn question, but this one's a little more grain just in general. James in Kremlin, Oklahoma, where they actually had a little bit of rain this week in Oklahoma and Texas. He's asking about the Mississippi River. We had the story on the show there. It's at historic lows and a possible railroad strike. Put those two together, how low will prices go? And how about that basis?
Yeah. Yes. If you throw a rail strike in, which is now kind of seeming possible, for in the middle of September, we figured, okay, this is done. The unions are going to ratify it, and it's going to be fine. But now we've had two unions that have said no, and now it begs the question, or leaves the question, what happens next? If rail goes down, on top of the issues with what's happening with the Mississippi River, you would expect basis to really fall very sharply. In fact, basis along the river, if those problems persist, you worry that the river basis could fall dramatically, and the board pays a lot of attention to river basis. But other places, at least for right now, with rails running, you have some areas that have really good basis because, look at Kansas and the Plains that had a really bad corn crop. They have a need for corn. Basis is going to be good there. Basis is going to be pretty good up anything along the rail line that goes to the Pacific Northwest. So, yeah, basis at the moment is local, but if the rail goes down, basis is going to be a problem really kind of everywhere. Yeah, and I don't know how the board would ignore something like that. And the reality is that we'd have a very difficult time getting any sort of exports sold and then shipped, right? So that would increase the balance sheet here in the United States.
It's like you've hosted things before. You know where we're going with the next question, Ted. Mark in Humphrey, Nebraska wants to know, when do we see corn moving west? Is it too hard and expensive? And that's before a rail issue like you're talking about.
Yes, before rail strike ends that conversation right away. When corn's $3.80, you look at profit margins being very, very thin, and you figure rail is just not feasible. But you think at the higher price corn, it's sort of a double-edged sword because from a shipper's perspective, there's more profit margin to work with. But from a feed perspective, you're already paying high-priced corn. You can't really afford to pay a whole lot more on top of that to get it shipped to you. So that's really going to be a question of how basis is going to work from the originator and how cheaply they can get the corn. Because if they're buying corn off the river and they can't move corn down the river and they're able to somehow get it railed to go west, then maybe that does make sense. But I don't know. There's a whole lot of logistical questions there that I don't know if we have answers to right now.
Well, we send train loads to Mexico. Or
Sure.
we did, for now.
Yeah.
We talked about this Mexico GMO story. A, what's prompting it? B, is that something that's realistic that could happen?
Yeah.
It's one thing to say it. It's another to carry it out.
Absolutely, Paul. I don't know what's driving it. I don't understand why Mexico wants to go all GMO. It's beyond me. I don't know if that's science-based or it's just...
Well, there was a push in Europe
Sure.
for non-GMO.
Yeah, I get it. I've never seen the science, the conclusive science that says non-GMO is better for anybody, especially for feed for animals. So I don't know. That being said, is it feasible? That's what I care about, right? It's certainly not feasible in the short term, right? Because again, what they're asking for is probably more non-GMO corn than what we currently grow in the United States. Or if not more, it's right about what we currently grow in the United States. Let's say 5% of the overall corn crop being non-GMO would put us at about 650 to 700 million bushels. And that's, 17 million metric tons. That's what Mexico imports normally from us. So if that's how much non-GMO corn we're currently growing, and it all already has a home, right? So that means we'd have to at least double our non-GMO corn production. And the way to do that would have to be price. And is Mexico willing to pay that price? And how quickly could that be done? They say they want to contract with individual farmers here, Brazil, and Argentina. Man, I don't know.
But do we even know if that's really what they want to do? Is not import the non-GMO? Or is it just we're not going to grow that in our own country?
No.
It's all about the exports.
They're
and the
saying
imports.
they
Okay.
don't want to import any GMO corn now. We've really been searching for clarity on this because, we've heard them say we don't want GMO corn for food consumption, but for feed it's okay. And if that's the case, then okay, that's not a big deal. That's not a big portion of the exports. Okay, fine. But then, Thursday, you've got their agriculture minister saying no GMO corn at all, not even for feed. And that makes us all look at each other and go, how? We don't have that much non-GMO corn. And to convert that many acres over to non-GMO corn, well, there's got to be a trigger or something to do that, and it'd have to be generated by price, which means Mexico is going to pay an extra $4 billion for their non-GMO corn. Are they willing to do that? And the answer is probably not. And how quickly could we change that over? I don't think it would happen in 1 year. So feasible? No, it's not. It really isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe over a few years, if there was the proper price incentive to do so, okay, maybe. I mean, because that's how markets work. There's got to be a price. Price encourages things. So is it possible? Maybe over time. Is it feasible right now for next year? No, I don't think so.
Is it possible that it impacts the market? We'll find out. And
so far, the market's really brushed it off
yeah.
as we don't believe this. Like, that's just not, again, not feasible.
Which is odd, because anytime there's a sneeze in China, the market seems to react. Yeah. Not as big of a customer as Mexico is.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So
for corn, absolutely
that's
right.
the head scratcher for you.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm done scratching your head and got all my questions in. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Paul.
Good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for making the trip. Next week, we are going to look at what is at stake in next month's election, and Sean Hackett will analyze the markets. I'm Paul Yeager. He's Ted Seifried. Thank you for watching. Have a great week.